You've mastered the art of politeness. You smooth over conflicts, stifle your anger, and say yes when you crave no, all in the service of being the nice guy. Yet Carl Jung warned that this mask, the persona you present to the world, can become your jailer. Underneath the courteous smile lies a fractured self, its true desires, boundaries, and passions exiled to the shadows. You think you're earning love and belonging, but what you're really cultivating is a brittle facade that crumbles under stress, leaving you anxious, resentful, and hollow. The nice guy mask is born of early conditioning, praise for compliance, shaming of anger, reward for taking care of others at your own expense. Over time, you forget who you are beneath the act. You surrender your authenticity for social currency, trading your inner voice for applause. But applause is fleeting, and the crowd's gaze fickle. When crisis strikes, when your mask slips, you find yourself exposed, panic-stricken, devoid of the very self you abandoned. In the reflections ahead, we'll explore 10 ways this seemingly benign mask is devouring your soul, and how Jung's insight into the persona offers a path back to wholeness. Because freedom isn't found in never offending, it's found in finally being. The persona, your safe, soulless costume. From childhood, you learn that nice is safe. You smile when you hurt. You agree when your gut screams no. You cheer others' victories while silently mourning your own. This daily performance, the persona, is the mask you don't to navigate the world without conflict. Jung likened it to a social costume, an identity tailored to expectations rather than authenticity. On the surface, the persona offers acceptance. It lets you belong, prevents criticism, and keeps you in the good graces of peers, family, and employers, but its safety is illusory. Beneath the mask lies a self stranded from its impulses, passions, and fears. The persona is soulless because it divorces your outer life from your inner reality. It speaks words that are not yours, acts out roles you never chose, and demands accolades without substance. This costume becomes especially pernicious when stress strikes. The slightest challenge, an honest critique, a request you can't fulfill, threatens to tear away the mask. You scramble to stitches it back, fearing exposure. Yet the longer you wear the persona, the more it hardens into his shell, and the more your genuine self shrinks away, paralyzed by the fear that authenticity equals rejection. In Carl Jung's view, the ultimate cost of a soulless costume is the loss of soul itself. You become an empty vessel, echoing others' values, performing scripts written by culture, family, and fear. True wholeness demands you unmask, slowly and courageously, reclaiming the vulnerable, messy living core that has been waiting all along for its turn to breathe. Early conditioning birthed the mask. Your nice guy mask did not arise by chance. It was forged in the crucible of early conditioning, praise for compliance and punishment for honest feeling. Perhaps you were rewarded when you stayed quiet at the dinner table and scolded when you spoke up. Perhaps you were lauded for peacemaking but shamed for anger. Over time, the lesson crystallized. Authenticity is risky, niceness is safe. This conditioning imprinted itself on your psyche. You came to associate worth with agreeable behavior and shame with unfiltered emotion. You learned that love and value are transactional, granted only to those who fit the approved mold. And so you rehearsed your lines, practiced your smile, and perfected the art of emotional invisibility. Like all learned patterns, this mask became second nature. You no longer paused to choose, you simply donned it each morning. You internalized your caretaker's judgments until they became your own inner voice. Be nice, don't rock the boat. Be the helper, the fixer, the agreeable one. Every authentic impulse was judged, suppressed, and exiled to the unconscious. Carl Jung taught that only by understanding the origins of our masks can we begin to dismantle them. Recognizing that your persona was gifted to you by well-meaning but wounded ancestors frees you from self-blame. It allows you to see the mask as an artifact, not an identity. And only then can you take the first steps toward reclaiming the self that was conditioned into silence. Suppressed anger, the shadow behind nice, beneath the polished surface of nice, often lies a simmering pool of suppressed anger. Every time you stifle frustration, deflect blame, or swallow your no, You deposit energy into your shadow, the part of you Carl Jung said we deny and despise. Over time, this unacknowledged fury accumulates, morphing into irritability, passive-aggressive behavior, or sudden outbursts that catch you by surprise. You tell yourself anger is unacceptable, unchristian, unprofessional, unlovable. So you tuck it away, often unaware it's there. Yet the shadow never vanishes, it only waits. And the more you deny it, the more it dictates your life from below. Awareness. You project it onto others, rage at inconsequential triggers, or carry a low-grade tension that sours relationships. To heal, you must face this shadow directly. Notice when irritation flares. Trace it to its roots. Is it resentment at unspoken boundaries? Shame at asserting yourself? Fear of abandonment? By naming the underlying need, respect, autonomy, honesty, you transform raw anger into a guidepost toward authenticity. Carl Jung insisted that integration of the shadow is essential for wholeness. Only when you acknowledge and welcome your anger as a valid human emotion can you release its hidden power. You learn to express it constructively, assertive rather than aggressive, clear rather than covert, honest rather than destructive. In this alchemy, the shadow becomes an ally, a signal of where your persona has betrayed your own truth. Boundary erosion. How you lose yourself when nice is your default mode. Boundaries erode like a coastline buffeted by endless waves. You say yes to demands that drain you, overextend yourself in relationships, and neglect your needs to avoid conflict. Each concession chips away at your sense of self, leaving you disoriented. Who am I, apart from the nice guy? Boundaries are the contours of your psyche, the clear lines between what belongs to you and what belongs to others. They protect your energy, your values, and your integrity. Without them, you absorb other people's expectations, emotions, and drama. You become a sponge, losing shape and substance. Carl Jung taught that establishing boundaries is an act of self-acknowledge and self-respect. It requires you to know what you think, feel, and need, and to communicate it honestly, even at the risk of displeasing others. Boundary setting is not selfishness. It is the affirmation that your life matters, that your time and emotions are precious. Begin by noticing where your exhaustion peaks, what requests you accept automatically, what resentments simmer beneath the surface. Then practice small refusals. Decline an extra favor. Pause before replying to a demanding text. Assert your preference in a minor decision. Each refusal rebuilds the wall that keeps yourself intact. As you reclaim your boundaries, you find that people respond not with rejection, but with respect. Your authenticity invites deeper connection, not the nice guy mask cracks, and what's revealed is not a monster, but a whole person, flawed, real, and undeniably alive. In protecting your limits, you protect your soul. People-pleasing as soul starvation. Your currency is approval, your worth tied to the number of likes you collect, the number of smiles you elicit, the number of times you agree. People-pleasing masquerades as kindness, but its deeper poison is soul starvation. When every act is measured by its potential to garner favor, you starve your authentic self of nourishment, creative impulse, honest expression, personal limits. Your inner garden, once vibrant with unique thought and feeling, withers under the persistent drought of self-neglect. The nice guy persona tells you that your value lies in keeping the waters calm, never stirring controversy or discomfort. Yet each compromise of your own needs, each suppressed opinion, is a rationed meal taken from your soul's feast. You become an echo of others' wishes, rather than a voice of your own. Over time, this echoing depletes your sense of aliveness. You awake one morning to find that your life has become a performance, and you don't even remember who you were supposed to be. Healing begins when you stop trading your integrity for short-lived applause. Notice the places in your life where you say yes out of obligation rather than desire. Ask yourself, what in me cries to be heard here? Then practice small acts of refusal. Refuse to smooth over every difference. Refuse to sacrifice your rest for one more favor. Refuse to dilute your truth to preserve a fragile peace. Each refusal is a seed of self-nourishment, feeding the parts of you that crave authenticity. As your soul regains its strength, you discover a paradox. People-pleasing loses its allure because it no longer rings true. Others sense your integrity, not your performance. The approval you earn is deeper and more genuine. Not the cheap applause of the crowd, but the quiet respect of those who see you stepping into your own power. The anxious flip when the mask fails. No mask withstands the full heat of life's chaos. Sooner or later, the nice guy facade cracks. You snap at a minor frustration, break down in tears, or simply say the unvarnished truth you've been buried. In that moment, the persona collapses, and the anxious flip follows. Shame, confusion, panic. You scramble to reconstruct the mask, fearing that your authentic outburst has branded you unfit for belonging. This flip is the persona's death rattle. It signals that the cost of maintaining your act has become too high and the suppressed self is breaking through. Yet rather than welcoming this crack as a portal to truth, you recoil, apologizing, covering up, explaining away. You recoil because you've never been taught that dismantling the mask is the path to wholeness. To move beyond the anxious flip, reframe it as a gift, not a failure. When the mask fails, you glimpse the raw self, vulnerable, imperfect, alive. Practice leaning into that vulnerability rather than patching the mask immediately. Stay with the discomfort of exposure for a few breaths. Let the shaking hands or the stuttered words pass without explanation. In doing so, you reinforce that your essence is not defined by seamless performance, but by the courage to be seen. Over time, these deliberate exposures blunt the mask's power. The flip loses its terror because you know you can survive and even flourish in your unmasked state. Anxiety gives way to curiosity, and each mask break becomes a stepping stone toward a more integrated life. Projection of your shadow onto others. When you refuse to acknowledge your own anger, envy, or cruelty, you project it onto the world, seeing in others the very flaws festering within. A colleague's ambition seems ruthless because you deny your own. A friend's sarcasm feels cruel because you've banished your capacity for biting honesty. This projection is a defensive tactic. Your persona cannot tolerate the thought that it harbors darkness, so it externalizes it. The result is fractured relationships, constant irritation, and an inner peace that eludes you. Carl Jung taught that projection is the psyche's smoke signal. When you see your hidden qualities in others, it's an invitation to reclaim them. Instead of condemning the villain across the table, pause and ask yourself, what in me resonates with this behavior? Let curiosity guide you into the shadow corners you've locked away. Invite those qualities back into your conscious life. Anger as boundary, ambition as creative energy, sarcasm as wit. By integrating your shadow, projection dissolves. You no longer react to others as living mirrors of your denied self. You engage with clarity, seeing both their humanity and your own reflected in them. This integration enriches your relationships, turning encounters once laced with blame into opportunities for mutual growth. Reclaiming authenticity through inner dialogue. The final step in shedding the nice guy mask is to cultivate an ongoing inner dialogue, a conversation between your persona and your authentic self. When you feel suppressed or complicit, pause and listen to the quiet voice beneath. Ask yourself, what do I truly think? What am I afraid to say? What do I need right now? Then respond with the gentleness of a trusted friend, not the harshness of a critic. This dialogue is not a one-time event, but a daily practice. In the morning, set an intention to honor your truth throughout the day. In the evening, journal about moments you silenced yourself and consider how you might respond differently next time. Each reflection strengthens the neural pathways of authenticity, making your genuine voice more accessible. As you nurture this inner alliance, the mask loses its cohesion. You no longer need external prompts to act honestly. Your inner self and persona begin to cooperate. The charming mask remains for context where diplomacy is wise, but it no longer overrides your core. You emerge whole, not perfect, but real, with boundaries, passions, and the courage to live by your own light. In reclaiming authenticity, you truly become the person you were born to be, integrating the shadow to shed the mask. The persona thrives by banishing anything that threatens its polished image. Anger, envy, pride, raw desire. These exiled parts coalesce into the shadow, the repository of your unrecognized vitality. Carl Jung insisted that true freedom demands integration of this shadow, not to destroy it, but to acknowledge and reclaim it. Only by weaving these hidden strands into your conscious fabric can you dissolve the barrier between mask and self. Integration begins with shadow awareness. Notice moments when you react disproportionately, judgments that feel too sharp, fantasies that thrill you uncomfortably, attractions you barely confess to yourself. These are clues to shadow content. Instead of turning away or rationalizing, lean in. Ask yourself, what aspect of me resonates with this reaction? What buried need or fear has surfaced? The answer, however unsettling, is a coordinate on your internal map. Next, practice shadow dialogue. Journal a conversation with the part you've exiled. Address your anger as you would a fearful child. I see you. You've been trying to protect me. Let your shadows speak. I'm here because your nice guy mask never let me breathe. This compassionate listening dissolves shame and builds trust between persona and shadow. Then channel your reclaimed energies creatively. If your shadow harbors rage, transform it into assertive boundary setting rather than passive aggression. If envy lurks, let it signal your unfulfilled aspirations and motivate skill building. If dark humor hides resentment, let it sharpen your insight rather than deflect discomfort. Each act of conscious expression reassigns shadow energy from reactive sabotage to generative power. Integration is not once and done. It is a lifelong dance. You will unearth new shadow aspects as you evolve. But with each integration, the persona's need for defense weakens. You no longer clutch your mask as a life raft. You wear it with effortless grace, knowing that the self beneath is whole. In integrating the shadow, you do more than shed a mask. You dismantle the walls between your conscious and unconscious, forging a psyche that breathes freely. What once threatened to devour you becomes the raw material of your wholeness. Living beyond the persona, the path to wholeness. Once the persona has begun to loosen its grip, a new frontier emerges, living beyond all masks. Wholeness is not the absence of a persona. It is the presence of the self, dynamic and multifaceted, using the persona as a tool rather than a prison. Carl Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming the unique individual you were always meant to be. The journey into wholeness is a daily commitment to authenticity. It begins each morning with intention to speak truth, set boundaries, and honor your inner compass. Even when the world's script demands otherwise, it continues in everyday interactions, allowing vulnerability rather than defaulting to politeness, expressing discomfort rather than nodding in feigned agreement, sharing passions rather than hiding them behind safe smiles. Wholeness thrives on integration, not perfection. You will falter. Old persona habits will resurface in anxious moments. Yet each time you catch yourself, apologize if needed, and realign with your truth, you reinforce the new neural pathways of authenticity. Your psyche learns that wholeness is stronger than pretense. Community plays a pivotal role. Seek allies, therapists, mentors, friends who value your growth over your compliance. Their reflections act as mirrors, showing you where persona cracks still hide. In their presence, you practice living beyond the mask, gaining confidence in your unmasked self. Ultimately, wholeness is found in creative engagement with life. You no longer ask, "What will they think?" but "What calls to my soul?" You pursue projects that resonate with your inner fire, relationships that respect your boundaries, adventures that stretch your capacity for wonder. Each choice affirms that your life story is yours to write. Living beyond the persona is not a destination but an evolving state of being. The mask remains for social navigation, but in your hands it becomes transparent, a garment worn with fluidity rather than fixed ceremony. Beneath it shines the integrated self, messy, whole, and alive. In this dance, you embody Carl Jung's promise. You move from half-life, under the persona's tyranny to full life under the self-sovereignty. Walking the path to wholeness with every unmasked breath.